I work at a drive-in theater that plays movies no one has seen. The new hire started with a classified ad. Help wanted. Night shift attendant. Old Pine Drive-In Theater. Cash only. Immediate start. No experience necessary. I'd been jobless for weeks, scraping by in a dying town where time seemed to have forgotten everything. That had felt like fate or maybe a trap. But desperate people don't ask questions, they just show up. I didn't know the drive-in had reopened. No one in town talked about it. Honestly, I didn't even think it existed anymore. But when I arrived that first night, the theater was there, waiting. Screen standing tall like a tombstone against the dusk, speakers crackling with static even though no one had pressed play. And from the moment I clocked in, nothing felt real again. The place looked like it had been pulled straight from the 1950s. Cracked pavement, rusted speaker poles, and a concession stand that smelled like burnt popcorn and old grease. The marquee read tonight's feature, The Whispering House. I hadn't heard of it. Neither had anyone I'd asked. The manager was a pale, wiry man named Bill. He had eyes that didn't blink enough and spoke in clipped phrases like he'd forgotten how conversations work. "You don't leave the lot during your shift," he said, handing me a set of jangly keys. "Ever. Don't watch the screen. Don't talk to the customers. Just keep the place tidy and keep the gates locked once they're inside." "Wait, don't watch the screen?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Bill didn't answer. He just stared at me until I nodded like I understood. And then he disappeared into the projection booth, locking the door behind him. The cars started arriving around 9 p.m. All old models, Chevys and Pontiacs from eras I'd only seen in history books. Chrome gleamed under the flickering lights. No engines idled. No headlights glared. They just appeared. I never saw anyone driving in. I didn't see faces either. The windshields were tinted black. Not just dark black like obsidian. I should have left right then. I should have called someone, screamed maybe. But I didn't. Maybe it was the paycheck. Maybe it was something else. Something the air whispered that made me stay rooted like a weed. At 9:30 sharp, the screen came to life. Fuzzy at first, then clearer. Black and white footage of a house sitting at the end of a dirt road. The kind of house you see in nightmares. Peeling paint. Curtains moving even when the windows are closed. The title The Whispering House flickered onto the screen in grainy letters. I looked away. 4 hours I tried to busy myself with fake tasks, sweeping already clean sidewalks, rearranging empty candy racks. But I could hear it. The movie. Not in dialogue, not in soundtracks, but in whispers. Constant. Like the screen was murmuring directly into my skull. At some point I saw movement. One of the cars. His door was open. A man, tall, dressed in a gray suit that looked like it belonged in a museum, stood beside it, staring at the screen with eyes that didn't blink. His mouth moved in sync with the whispers. He was mouthing the lines. Before they happened. And then, just as suddenly, he was gone. Door shut. No sign he'd ever moved. When the movie ended around midnight, every car slowly rolled out. Or maybe they disappeared. I never saw tires turn. Just here one moment, gone the next. Bill emerged from the booth as if nothing strange had happened. "You locked the gates during the movie?" he asked. He nodded. "You didn't watch the screen?" "No. I mean, just glimpses." He frowned. "That's too much. That night I dreamed of the house. The one from the screen. Only it wasn't a dream. I woke up drenched in sweat, mud on my shoes, leaves in my hair. My apartment door still locked. I checked my phone's GPS history. Nothing. But there was a Polaroid photo on my nightstand. It showed me, standing at the edge of that same dirt road, the house looming behind me like it was waiting for me to come back. The next night I showed up again. Against all logic. My head told me to run, but something deeper whispered that it was already too late. That I'd been chosen the second I read that classified ad. The marquee now read, "Tonight's feature. Smiling Jack's Carnival." I Googled it. Nothing. Not a single record. Same setup. Same cars. Same faceless drivers. Bill handed me the keys, same as before. You'll start to remember things, he said this time. Remember what? But he was already gone again. This movie. It was worse. Brighter, more colorful. An old carnival with peeling rides and clown-faced tents. But the people weren't actors. I knew they weren't. Their movements were too real. Too unscripted. There was a boy chasing a balloon that seemed to lead him into darker corners of the fairgrounds, and every time he turned, the camera zoomed in on his eyes. Wide, pleading, trapped. I looked away again. But it didn't help. From the far side of the lot I heard laughter. Not recorded laughter. Real. Sharp and manic. When I turned, there was a man in a jester costume standing between the speaker poles. His mouth stretched wide into a painted grin, but his eyes were hollow sockets. He waved and blinked. He was gone. This time when I went home, there were carnival tickets in my pockets. Dozens of them. Each had my name scrawled in red ink. That was 2 weeks ago. I've worked every night since. Every night a new movie. Every night a film that doesn't exist. At least not anywhere but here. Titles like The Girl Who Sang to Graves, Footsteps in the Snow, and The Man in the Second Mirror. I've started writing them down. Cataloging them. But no matter how much I write, the list keeps growing. And the whispers. They follow me home now. Last night I made a mistake. I watched. Not just a glance. I watched the whole thing. The film was titled The Last Employee. It showed a man, someone like me, cleaning the lot, watching the screen, slowly going mad. Every detail matched my life. My clothes, my name tag, my scars. And then it ended with him walking into the screen. Vanishing into static. When it cut to black, I was the only one left in the lot. No cars. No whispers. Just me. And the screen still glowing. And that's when I noticed. My reflection on it wasn't moving. It was still watching. Smiling. Would you like me to continue with part 2 now? The screen remembers. I didn't go home after that night. I drove around aimlessly until sunrise, watching the horizon for any sign of something unnatural. But the sky never turned red. The road stayed empty. The static in my ears faded only when I turned up the radio, drowning it in someone else's noise. But even then, I swear I heard something behind the music. Breathing. I returned to the theater the next evening like a puppet on a string. My mind told me to quit, to burn the place down, to run far away and never look back. But something in my chest pulsed with a hunger that didn't belong to me. Like the screen had hooked its fingers inside me, and it was slowly reeling me in. The marquee read, "Mirror Children." The letters were crooked, as if rearranged in a rush. Bill wasn't there. That had never happened before. The projection booth was locked tight, but his car was parked beside it. Same rusted blue sedan with a peeling bumper sticker. I brake for shadows. I knocked on the door, waited. No answer. I checked the concession stand. Cold. Me. No lights. No popcorn scent. Just silence and that weird metallic taste on my tongue again. The screen buzzed to life at 9:30 sharp. I hadn't unlocked the gate. I hadn't turned on the projector. And yet, the light cut through the dark like a blade. One by one the cars returned. Each slid into place without headlights, their glass black as ever. I counted 16. Same number as last night. Same arrangement. I think they were the same cars. I stood by the ticket booth, breathing shallowly. The movie began. Children. Pale and perfect, with wide black eyes and faces too smooth. They played in a house that was all glass. Walls, floors, ceilings. Mirrors everywhere. When one of them giggled, the sound echoed like a scream through 1,000 reflections. I turned away. But not quickly enough. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw one of the children place their hand against the mirror. And then reach through it. Something crawled out. A long-limbed figure, lanky, featureless. It moved behind the children like a shadow wearing flesh. They didn't see it. But I did. I tried to look away completely, but my legs refused. My neck stiffened. My body wanted to turn, but my eyes craved the screen. And then something whispered my name. Not a voice I recognized. Not Bill. Not anyone I knew. Came from the nearest car. A voice, whispering my name again and again, slowly, softly, like it was trying to remember how to say it. I approached the car against my better judgment. The window rolled down. No one sat inside. Just a screen. A small, flickering screen embedded into the seat, glowing faintly with static. And on it my face. I stepped back, heart racing. The whisper grew louder. More insistent. But it wasn't angry. It was desperate. Pleading. And then I saw something else on the screen. Behind my reflection, standing just over my shoulder, was one of the mirror children. Grinning. Motionless. Its eyes locked onto mine. I spun around. Nothing. But the static screen now read, "You belong here." Ran. All the way across the lot to the projection booth. I slammed on the door, screaming for Bill. Nothing. The door didn't budge. I used my keys. None worked. I smashed the glass. Inside, the projector was whirring by itself. No film reels. No inputs. Just light. Cold, white light blasting against the back wall. And in the middle of the floor, a chair. Me. Except for a single strip of torn fabric. Bill's shirt, stained with something dark. The movie continued outside, showing now a scene where the mirror children all gathered around a new arrival. A man with a blank face, mouth sewn shut. He tried to scream. He couldn't. They held up a mirror. Forced him to look. His face changed. Became theirs. And the screen cut to black. The cars vanished. Like mist blown away by wind. Silence fell again. I stood there, staring at the empty lot, unsure if I was still real. I walked back to the booth and sat in the chair where Bill's scrap had been left. My hands trembled as I touched the projector. It was cold, lifeless. But then it clicked. A new reel slid out of the wall by itself. It had my name written on it. Not printed. Scratched. Deep jagged lines. I left it there. I ran to my car. Started the engine. Drove faster than I'd ever driven. But when I got home, something was off. The front door was unlocked. The light in the kitchen was on. And every mirror in the apartment was shattered. Except one. The bathroom mirror. In it, my reflection smiled at me, while I stood perfectly still. And then it stepped away. Without me. It walked off screen. I watched myself leave. While I remained. I don't remember sleeping. But when I woke up, my phone had a new video file. No sender. No timestamp. Just titled "Coming Soon." Tap play. It was the drive-in. Me. Then cars arrived. The screen lit up. The title card read, "The Night He Stayed." And there I was. On screen. Cleaning. Wondering. Staring too long. Crying. Screaming. Begging. It played through scenes that hadn't happened yet. I don't think I can stop it. I don't think it wants me to. Tonight the marquee says "Welcome back." And there's no turning back now. Bill's last night. I kept telling myself I wouldn't go back. But that video on my phone wouldn't stop playing. Every time I deleted it, it came back, clearer, louder, longer. I'd hear muffled audio even when the screen was off. Voices hissing through the speaker at night. Scraping noises from inside the walls. My reflection smiling in the dark. On the third day, I woke to find my car keys in my hand and my shoes muddy. I had no memory of leaving. But there was a popcorn kernel in my jacket pocket. I think it's pulling me back. Or maybe I never really left. At sunset, I gave in and drove to the theater. Not because I wanted to, but because every other road led me there no matter how many turns I made. I'd blink, and the neon sign would be glowing in the distance. Now showing, The Projectionist. Bill's car was still parked in the same spot. Dustier now. A fresh crack in the windshield. Like something had pressed against it from the inside. The gate was wide open. No wind. No sound. Not even bugs in the air. I walked up to the projection booth first. The broken glass from my earlier attempt to enter had been swept away. The projector was running again. Still no film. Just light pouring from it onto the wall. The chair was gone. In its place, a set of clothes folded neatly. Bill's uniform. And beside them a notebook. It was old, leather-bound. The cover scorched like it had been rescued from a fire. The pages inside were filled with scribbled entries, frantic handwriting, ink smeared with what I hoped was water. I flipped to the first page. The movies here don't play from reels. They come from somewhere else. They use the projector like a mouth, a window, a tunnel. I don't pick the films. They pick us. The next entry was dated 3 months ago. First time I noticed something wrong, the marquee spelled my name. Then the movie showed my childhood. Things no one else could have filmed. My old dog, my first bike, even the night I found my dad hanging in the garage. Scene by scene. But it wasn't a movie. It was a memory. Another. The cars never leave. Not really. Even after the screen goes dark, they sit there. I watched one once at 3 a.m. No headlights. No driver. But it started humming. Like someone was inside it, breathing real slow. And this one. I tried filming what happens here. Brought a GoPro. Set it up in the booth. When I checked the footage, it was 8 hours of someone staring directly into the lens. But I never stood there. I was home. Toward the middle of the book, things got worse. More erratic. Sentences trailing off mid-thought. The screen is feeding on us. I saw myself sitting in one of the cars last night. Wave. It waved back. I think they want a new projectionist. The last page chilled me. If you're reading this, it's too late. You'll feel the pull. You'll hear the static. You'll see the faces in the glass. When they come, don't run. That only makes it worse. Just let it play out. We all get our turn on screen. I dropped the notebook. Backed away. The projector's light flared suddenly, casting my shadow on the wall. Only it wasn't mine. It had longer arms. Twisted neck. Its head turned the wrong way. The movie started on the screen outside. I hadn't touched anything. The projectionist began with a familiar image. Bill. Sitting in the booth. Staring down at the parking lot. Watching the cars arrive. Each vehicle, as it pulled in, flashed a license plate that matched someone from the town. Someone who had disappeared. A woman in the audience. Teenager from school. Local mailman. Each car carried a silhouette. But no details. Like something wearing the idea of a person. On screen, Bill leaned over the mic and welcomed them. "Enjoy the show," he said. His voice didn't sound right. Hello. Like it had been stitched together from old radio broadcasts. Then the scene changed. Now we were in the booth with Bill. He wasn't moving. His eyes were sewn open. The projector behind him cast reels of his memories. His birth, his first job, a fire at his childhood home. And then something watching him from the flames. A face in the smoke. It whispered something I couldn't hear, but Bill clearly did. He flinched. Blood ran from his nose. Suddenly, a hand, thin, too long, skin like old paper, reached from behind the projector and gently touched his shoulder. He didn't react. Like he couldn't feel it. The hand slid down through his chest. When it pulled back, it held a reel made of veins. The screen flickered violently. Outside, the car's headlights blinked in unison. Once. Then all went black. A siren wailed in the distance. I realized it wasn't from the film. It was real. I turned toward the road, and saw a long black car pulling in. Unlike the others, it had no plates. Its windows weren't tinted. It was dark. I could see myself in them, distorted. The car parked in the front row, dead center. Its engine shut off. The doors never opened. But the screen shifted again, this time to a live feed of the theater. Me. I was on screen now, standing in the middle of the lot, staring at the black car. It was exactly what I was doing, second by second, breath by breath. Then the camera zoomed in slowly. The feed focused on my face. And behind me, someone else stood. They moved when I didn't. I turned, heart pounding. Nothing. Back to the screen. Now the figure was closer to me. I could see fingers touching the back of my head. I fell to the ground, unable to breathe. In the booth, the projector grew louder. The light turned red. I crawled back up to the booth, trying to shut it off. Pull the plug. Smash the lens. But the projector had no power cord. No buttons. Just was. The air felt thick, humming with invisible voices. They buzzed in my skull like flies in a jar. I screamed. The film snapped mid-reel. Spun wildly. And then, silence. The screen went dark. Cars were gone. Only the black one remained. His driver door opened. Nothing stepped out. Yet I felt something watching. Breathing. Waiting. I stood there for a long time. Eventually I left. Walked all the way home. I didn't even try to take my car. At my apartment, the bathroom mirror had cracked. A note was taped to it. Tomorrow's feature, you. Underneath, my name had been carved into the glass. The reels are alive. I didn't sleep. The cracks in the bathroom mirror kept getting wider. No matter how many times I looked away, they multiplied, like veins growing under the skin of glass. By sunrise, the entire thing had splintered into a spiderweb pattern with my name still etched in the center. A word appeared beneath it, slowly as if being written from the inside. Tonight. I didn't know what that meant exactly. Only that I'd be back at the drive-in, whether I wanted to or not. At 7:43 p.m., the screen of my phone turned on by itself. No notifications. Just the same message, glowing in pale static. Then my door unlocked on its own. I heard it click. I was being summoned. This time I didn't fight it. Got in my car. Didn't pack a bag. Didn't call anyone. I don't even remember the drive. Just the overwhelming sense of inevitability, like everything I was doing had already been done before. When I arrived at the drive-in, the entire lot was full. Hundreds of cars. None with drivers. Not a single engine running. Not a voice, not a cough, not a single flicker of human life. Just cold, silent machines, parked perfectly row by row. The black car sat in the front row again, dead center. Its doors were still open, but the inside now looked wrong. Too deep. Like it stretched into somewhere else. The screen was already glowing. Not playing a movie, just glowing like an old TV with no signal, but the longer I stared at it, the more it seemed to pulse like it had a heartbeat. I tried to stay in my car, lock the doors, pretend I didn't care. But the projector in the booth flared to life, and the radio crackled, loud and clear in every single car at once. Tonight's feature presentation is brought to you by you. And the movie began. No opening credits. No sound. Just the image of me, sitting in my apartment looking into the bathroom mirror. Watching the cracks spread. Everything I had done the night before was now being played back. But not exactly how it happened. In the version on the screen, I never left the mirror. I stood there for hours, whispering to my reflection. Bleeding from the eyes. Carving something into the sink with a toothbrush handle. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wasn't watching a recording. I was watching a version of me I hadn't lived yet. Or maybe I had. The screen flickered. Now I was back at the drive-in, but instead of sitting in the car, I was in the projection booth. Staring into the spinning reel. Smiling. A whisper crept into my ears, from nowhere and everywhere. You belong here now. Suddenly, the windows on all the parked cars fogged up at once. Shapes formed behind each windshield. Silhouettes. Moving slightly. Hands rising. Faces pressing to the glass. Some of them looked like people I used to know. A teacher from middle school who vanished in '06. My cousin Nate, who drowned when I was a kid. My grandmother, who'd been buried 10 years ago but now smiled with a stitched mouth in the back seat of a dusty station wagon. They were all back, sitting in those cars. But their eyes weren't eyes. Just darkness. Empty, hungry, cold. The film jumped frames again. I was now in the black car looking out. Watching myself approach. Watching me reach for the handle. And then I was doing it. Walking toward the car in real life, unable to stop. Feet dragging through gravel as the whispering turned into low chants. Let him in. Let him see. Let him play the reel. I yanked the door open. Nothing inside. Just the endless blackness stretching like a tunnel. No seats. No roof. Just stars swirling in a circle, as if the universe was inside this thing. I leaned in. Felt cold fingers wrap around mine. Then I woke up. I was in the projection booth again. The projector was spinning. Only this time it had a film reel, made of hair, skin, and something that looked like cartilage. Clicked through the machine slowly. The image on the screen showed the inside of my skull. Not a metaphor. I was inside myself watching memories stitched together with horror. My 5th birthday. My parents arguing outside the cake shop. The day I lied about my best friend and got him expelled. The night I let my dog die because I was too scared to go outside. Everything I had forgotten or chosen to forget was being replayed. One by one, the projector plucked them from me and burned them onto the screen. Outside, the audience of shadows clapped. It was slow, mocking, rhythmic. Blap, blap, blap. Then I saw him. The projectionist. I don't know how I knew it was him. He looked human but wrong. Too tall. Neck too long. Eyes glowing behind vintage 3D glasses. He wore an old uniform, the name tag smudged, but I swear it read me. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Cold. Dry. Like paper soaked in bleach. He leaned close to my ear. The reels are hungry. They need stories. They need endings. I tried to run but my legs didn't move. The projectionist took a reel from the shelf, labeled Future, and loaded it into the machine. The screen showed me 6 days from now. Working the booth. Welcoming cars. Replacing film reels with strips of people's minds. I watched myself, becoming him. Screaming inside, smiling outside. He turned to me again. They need a new story. Yours is next. And then he disappeared. I was alone. Except I wasn't. From every shadow of the booth, thin hands reached out. Thumbs up. Begging. Offering. Touching. Each one held a reel. Some said mom. Others said friend. One said the last customer. I picked one without looking. Slid it into the projector. The screen went black. The sound of a woman crying played through the speakers. Not from the film, from the lot. One car's door was now open. Someone had just stepped out. A real person. A girl maybe 16, pale, confused. Holding a flashlight. Wearing a backpack. She stumbled into the beam of the projector, blinded. I opened the booth door and screamed. Get out! Don't watch! But the moment she turned to the screen, it was too late. The flashlight hit her face. She looked just like my sister. But my sister died 5 years ago. In a car crash. On the way to the movies. Her head turned unnaturally. She looked at me. And smiled. I saved your seat. The screen burst into flame, but it wasn't fire. It was film stock unraveling mid-air. Dissolving into smoke that smelled like nostalgia and blood. The speakers whispered. The next reel begins in 5 minutes. I stumbled from the booth, coughing, half blind. The girl was gone. The cars were empty again. The projector quiet. Only the screen remained, smoldering. A new title appeared in red letters. Coming soon, your last night. Coming soon, your last night. I didn't remember driving home. I just blinked and suddenly I was in my bed, fully dressed, the smell of burnt film still clinging to my clothes. I wanted to believe it was a dream, some elaborate fever-drenched nightmare, but the half-melted movie ticket still sat on my nightstand. It had my name printed on it. Where the movie title usually went, there were 4 words. One way. No return. I stayed inside for 2 days after that. Curtains closed. Lights off. No phone. No internet. I thought maybe if I just ignored the drive-in, ignored whatever had taken hold of me, it would disappear. Maybe it only existed when I acknowledged it. But on the 3rd night someone knocked on my door. Not once. Not twice. 13 times, slow and rhythmic. When I opened it there was no one there. Just a film canister on my porch with a note taped to the top. Final showing tonight. Attendance is mandatory. I left it on the porch. The next morning it was inside my apartment, sitting on the kitchen table, humming softly, like something alive and breathing in celluloid form. That night I gave up fighting. I went back. The drive-in was different now. Larger. The lot had expanded into what used to be the woods. More screens now, too. Tall, pale rectangles rising from the ground like tombstones. Each one playing something different, something awful. Shadows screamed in flickering silence across every screen. And the cars. They were full again. This time I recognized every face. Not from life, but from dreams. Nightmares I hadn't thought about in years. A woman with too many teeth. A boy with empty sockets for eyes. The man in the train station who whispered my name when I was 8 and told me I'd never make it to 25. They were all here. Watching. Waiting. For me. The projector booth looked the same on the outside. But inside it had grown. The space stretched backward into darkness. Shelves stacked high with reels. Thousands of them. Each one labeled with someone's name and a date. I found one with my birth date. Then another with today's date. When I turned around, the projectionist was there. No longer distant. Now inches from me. His 3D glasses cracked down the middle, revealing black pits where his eyes should have been. He held out the final reel. It was smaller than the others. Warp. The label was handwritten in trembling red ink. Your last night. I didn't take it. I didn't have to. It floated into the projector on its own. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered. And the film began. It started with me, walking into the drive-in just minutes ago. Every movement exact. Even this moment watching the movie was shown in real time. Then the film shifted. I was in the booth, but no longer alone. People began to file in. Familiar people. Customers from past nights. That teenage girl who looked like my sister. The old man who vanished from Lot C. The couple who held hands until their skin fused together. They all stood behind me now, watching the real play. But they didn't have faces anymore. Just blank, stretched skin. As if their identities had been erased by the film. Then came the final scene. Me older, hunched, wearing the projectionist's coat. The screen said. 35 years later. I was still here. Still playing movies. Still feeding the lot. Still collecting stories. The camera zoomed in on my face. It wasn't mine anymore. It was hollowed out, eaten away by the celluloid. My eyes were spinning reels. My mouth stitched shut with film strips. The audience clapped, their hollow palms echoing in the booth like thunder. And then the screen went black. In total silence, the projectionist removed the final reel from the machine, placed it back in the canister, and turned to me. He pointed at the door. I knew what it meant. My shift had begun. I tried to protest, scream, run, but my body moved on its own. I walked to the booth door, stepped outside, and waved at the next customer driving in. He looked confused, just like I had the first night. Behind me, the projectionist faded into dust. His job complete. The black car pulled into the front row again. Doors opened. Inside, I saw the stars swirl once more. The screen lit up, and the first scene began. A man at home, finding a strange movie ticket on his nightstand. The silent row. The longer I worked the projector, the more the lines between memory and movie blurred. I couldn't tell where my own life ended and the reels began. Each night, new cars arrived. Sometimes rusty, sometimes brand new, but always filled with people I thought I recognized, until I didn't. One row always remained empty. Row 13. The gravel in that lane was darker, slick, as if stained by something permanent. The speakers in those stalls never worked, and any car that parked there was gone by the next scene. Never seen leaving, never returning. One night I made the mistake of asking about it. I'd been working the booth alone, the projectionist's coat now hanging off my shoulders like it belonged to me, and I was logging the night's reels when a whisper curled from the back of the room. You should clean row 13 before the next show. I spun around. No one there. The whisper came again. Row 13. They're waiting. I hadn't seen the projectionist since he dissolved into ash. I figured that was part of the gig. You became him slowly, cell by cell. But his voice still echoed through the booth at times, usually in riddles or warnings. This one felt like both. I walked down into the lot. Fog clung to the gravel like it was exhaled from the screens themselves. Rows 1 through 12 were full of frozen figures, their heads tilted toward the flickering screens, eyes wide, unmoving. No one blinked. No one breathed. Row 13 was empty. Completely still. No cars. No sound. No wind. I crouched, touching the ground. My fingers came away wet. Blood. Still warm. I stood up fast, and found a woman standing in front of me. She was barefoot, wearing an usher's uniform from the 1950s, red vest, tiny bow tie, a name tag that read, Eleanor. Her skin was gray, eyes milky white, but her smile was kind. First, do you need help seating guests? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She tilted her head. They don't need seats, she said. They're always watching, even when there's nothing to see. Before I could ask what that meant, she vanished. No flash, no noise, just gone. I turned back toward the booth. Row 13 was no longer empty. 7 cars. All jet black. All lined perfectly. None of them had license plates. The screen behind them came alive, playing a scene I hadn't cued. Diner. One I'd been to as a child. The footage showed a young boy eating alone, the waitress ignoring him, the other customers whispering behind menus. Me. It was me. And I remembered the moment. My parents were fighting outside. They left me alone for over an hour while they argued in the parking lot. I'd sat in that booth crying quietly, drawing monsters on a napkin. The screen zoomed in on the napkin. The monsters weren't drawings. They moved. Twitched. Smiled. Then the boy on the screen looked up, right into the camera, and whispered something. I couldn't hear it. There was no sound. But every person in every black car turned toward me, their faces flickering like unstable film. They stepped out one by one. Each wore the same thing. Black suits, white gloves, blank masks stretched too tightly across their heads. They walked slowly toward me. Backed away. You're not ready, said a voice behind me. Eleanor again. Still smiling, but this time her teeth were sharp. Too many of them. All the same size. You haven't collected enough stories. She touched my shoulder. Her fingers were cold and wet. The lot must feed. You have to bring them. I shook my head. Bring who? The ones who dream of forgetting. The ones who don't belong anywhere else. She stepped into row 13, and every figure bowed as she passed. They come for the movies, she said. But they stay for the ending. Then she turned to me and whispered one final thing. You'll know it's your last shift when row 13 is full. That night, when I returned to the booth, the reel I had prepared was gone, replaced by a new one. No label. I loaded it anyway. The screen blinked on. It showed someone walking through the projector booth, filming themselves. The camera dipped to show hands. My hands. Then the footage stopped. Black screen. And a single message appeared. Coming soon. Below it a timestamp: tomorrow. 3:13 a.m. I didn't sleep. The 3:13 showing. I watched the clock as it crept toward 3:13 a.m. My shift had started like every other. Reel spinning, flickering screen, shadows and parked cars unmoving, but nothing felt routine anymore. The air was heavy with something waiting. 3:12 the screen went black. All the lot lights dimmed, not off, just low enough to distort things. The projector began humming, louder than usual. I looked out at the lot. Row 13 was full. Every stall. 13 cars. Jet black. Motionless. Their engines weren't running. Their windows were too dark to see through. But I could feel them watching. Then, at exactly 3:13 a.m., the screen flared to life with no film loaded. Pure white background. Words typed themselves across it in jet black. This show is for you. My chest tightened. The screen shifted. It now showed the projection booth, my booth right now. Me standing inside it. It wasn't security footage. It was live. And it was from a high angle, like someone was watching from the ceiling. I turned around fast. No one. But a shadow crossed the wall. I backed up against the control panel. My hand landed on something cold. A real canister. I hadn't seen it before. It wasn't part of tonight's batch. My name was written on it in thick red marker. Final cut. I didn't load it. I just stood there, heart pounding. The projector clicked anyway, as if it had decided for me. The reel inside began to spin. The movie started. The screen outside showed a house I hadn't seen in years. My childhood home. I knew that broken porch railing. The swing that never stopped swaying. And I remembered the basement, even though I'd never dared go down there as a kid. The camera moved through the front door, slow and gliding. No one held it. It just moved like it had a will of its own. Inside, the house was filled with whispers, unintelligible but urgent, like the sound of thoughts too quiet to hear but too loud to ignore. Floated down the basement stairs. Stopped in front of a door. That door. The one I'd locked and never opened. Even when I was older, braver. On the screen, the door creaked open. And behind it, nothing. Just blackness. But from the speakers, something breathed. Shallow. But hungry. The movie cut to a living room scene. Boy, me again watching static on a TV. His eyes were open too wide, unblinking. On the wall behind him, shapes flickered. People standing still. Watching him. The screen cut again to the drive-in. Now. The camera panned across the lot, through the cars in row 13. This time the windows weren't dark. Inside each car sat someone I had known. But who had died? My grandmother. My 5th grade teacher who hung herself. My neighbor who vanished last year. All of them pale and still, staring at the screen. And then me. In the 13th car. I stared at myself. Not a video. Not a trick. It was me. My face looked blank. Not dead but emptied. As if everything inside had been projected out of me. Then the figure in the car turned toward the booth and smiled. I turned from the window. Inside the booth, the mirror on the wall no longer showed my reflection. Showed the lot. From overhead. I was gone from the booth. I was in the 13th car. I staggered backward, trying to catch my breath. The projector spun faster. The film began to burn. The booth filled with smoke, but it didn't choke. It smelled like old film and dirt and something sweet like rotting fruit. And through it, I saw the usher again, Eleanor. This time, her uniform was stained, soaked in black. Her hands dripped something thick onto the booth floor. "You've watched enough," she said. "Time to be watched." She raised her hand and pointed to the screen. Now it showed nothing but a dark theater. Rows and rows of seats, filled with shadowy figures, all staring forward. Me. I was on the screen now. Not a reflection. I stood, mouth moving, though I said nothing. The audience didn't blink. Didn't move. And then, from the shadows between their seats, something began to crawl forward. All limbs, no face. Long and clicking. In the booth something knocked. 3 hard knocks on the back door. Then silence. I didn't move. Another knock. This time softer. Then the door opened slowly, but no one entered. Instead, a film reel rolled in on its own. Stopped at my feet. This one was labeled "After Credits." The screen outside went dark. And the drive-in, for the first time since I started, fell completely silent. I turned back to the reel. It was spinning on its own. And from inside it, faintly, came the sound of someone whispering my name. Not once, but over and over. In a voice that wasn't human. I couldn't make out the words. Until I leaned in close. "You've been playing their stories. But they've been watching yours." The reel spun faster. The booth lights exploded in a crack of electricity. And just before everything went black, I saw a single frame freeze on the screen. A gravestone. With my name on it. The date was tomorrow. Now playing me. I didn't wake up. That was the first thing I realized. This wasn't a nightmare. There was no jolt, no escape, no transition. 1 second I was staring at my own tombstone flickering on the screen, and the next, I was still in the projection booth. But something had changed. It was daylight. The clock said 3:13, but PM, not AM. The drive-in looked normal. Birds chirped. Cars were gone. So was the fog, the burned-out reel, the usher dripping shadows. All of it. I stepped outside, blinking against the sunlight. Everything was still. Too still. There was no hum of traffic beyond the fence. No wind. No insects. Just a kind of artificial calm, like a set built for a movie that hadn't started filming yet. And then I noticed the sign above the concession stand. It had changed. Instead of showing the day's movie listings, it read, "Now playing you." I tried to leave. I bolted for the exit gate, keys in hand, heart slamming against my ribs. But the gate was gone. The booth that housed it, the old chain-link gate with the manual crank, vanished. Just blank, endless road beyond the lot. But it didn't go anywhere. I walked 10 steps forward, and the scenery didn't change. Just the same gravel. Same 2 trees on either side. Like a loop. I looked back. The drive-in was still there. Frozen in time. Except, now the lot was filling up again. Cars I hadn't seen before. Strange models. Bulky, rusted-out things with yellowed windows. Some of them looked melted. Twisted in shapes that defied physics. And worse, they were all driving themselves. No drivers. They parked row by row. All facing me. I ran back to the projection booth. Inside, the equipment had changed. Instead of the usual dials and knobs, there was just a massive red button labeled "OIN," and next to it a monitor. I stared at it. Showed me. From above, from the side, from the front, every angle imaginable. All in real time. I looked up and saw no cameras. But the feed continued. I hit the rewind button out of panic. The image reversed. I watched myself running backward. The lot emptying. The daylight reversing into night. All the way back to the moment I first stepped foot in the booth days ago. Then it stopped. The screen blinked and new footage started. Not the past. The future. I watched as I walked into the lot, alone. I stood in front of the screen. The cars returned. The usher returned. She whispered something in my ear. Collapse. And the film ended with me. Inside one of the cars. Row 13. Permanent. Projected. Consumed. I ripped the power cord from the wall. Nothing happened. The monitor stayed on. And then the screen outside flared to life. No film was loaded. Still it began to play. It was my childhood again. Same scenes as before. My home, the basement, but this time I wasn't watching. I was in it. I felt the cold basement air. The scent of mildew and wood rot. I was standing in front of the door I had sworn never to open. But something inside me did. My hand reached for the knob. I turned it. The blackness beyond wasn't just dark. It was alive. Writhe. And then, from the depths, a pale hand reached out and grabbed mine. I screamed. And found myself standing again in the lot. Now night again. I was in the center of the drive-in. Surrounded. Rows of those grotesque cars stretched endlessly. Far beyond the original size of the theater. They went on into a void where the sky was ink and the stars blinked like dying bulbs. The screen overhead towered. Now easily 50 stories high. It didn't show a film anymore. It showed my thoughts. Flickering flashes of every memory, every shame, every fear I'd buried. The audience was silent, but they watched with hunger. Suddenly the speaker poles all crackled. And a voice, the same voice from the reel, raspy and intimate, spoke. "Your story is incomplete. Finish it." A script appeared in my hand. Pages blank. Except for the last. End. And beneath it, a line that hadn't yet been written. The voice continued. "Write it. Or stay forever." My hand shook. I grabbed a pen from the booth. Somehow I still had it and stared at the page. What did they want? A confession? A sacrifice? Or just content? I started writing. I never meant for any of this to happen. I just wanted a quiet job. Paycheck. I didn't ask to be watched. I didn't ask to be remembered. The paper glowed with every word. The speaker crackled again. Lies bore them. Be honest. My pen stopped. I thought about the real reason I took this job. Had run away. From mistakes. From someone I hurt. From something I couldn't face. Kept writing. I used to work at a hospital. I made a mistake. Patient coded. Froze. He died. I lied in the report. The air shifted. The audience leaned closer. Kept going. I thought I could hide here. At this theater, with its shadows and silence. But stories find you. Even the ones you bury. As I wrote the final sentence, the screen outside shimmered. The cars began to fade. One by one the seats emptied. A low hum filled the air, the sound of film spooling in reverse. And then silence. Dawn cracked over the drive-in. Real this time. Birds chirped again. The projector shut off on its own. The monitor went black. And the gate, the real gate, was back. I stood in the empty lot. No audience. No usher. Just me. I didn't look back. I walked to the gate, opened it, and stepped into the road. The sky stretched wide. I didn't know where I was going. But for the first time in days I wasn't being watched. Or so I thought. Because as I walked away, I passed a road sign I hadn't seen before. Bent, old, rusted. It read, "You are now leaving the screenplay. You may be written back in." And beneath it, scribbled in marker, "Sequel in progress. Final showing." The road was quiet. Too quiet. I kept walking, leaving behind the warped reality of the drive-in theater. My legs moved on their own, like they had some forgotten destination etched deep in their muscle memory. I didn't know where I was going, but I needed to keep moving. The sun had risen, but something felt wrong with it. Dimmer, like a backlight on a failing screen. The colors around me seemed muted. I passed trees, but their leaves didn't rustle. I passed houses, but their windows were dark, as if no one had lived in them for years. There were no cars, no animals, no wind. Just the faint hum, low and constant, like static behind my eardrums. I turned a corner and saw a gas station. Relief hit me like a wave. Civilization. Phone, maybe food. Someone to talk to. But the gas station looked old, like too old. Its pumps were rusted, the neon sign buzzing and flickering. Still I went in. Inside, the air smelled of dust and film chemicals. Shelves were half-stocked with snacks and drinks I hadn't seen since I was a kid. Urge soda. Hostess chocodiles. Candy cigarettes. The lights buzzed overhead. A small TV in the corner played a black-and-white movie with no sound. The image flickered every few seconds, as if the tape were warping. Behind the counter stood a man. His face was familiar. It was me. Older. Worn out. He's sunken. Skin pale. He didn't say anything at first. Just stared at me with recognition. And maybe pity. "You left the lot," he finally said. His voice sounded like mine but slower, as if time weighed down every word. Not many do. I tried to speak but couldn't find the words. He reached under the counter and placed something in front of me. Film reel. Labeled. "The ending you chose." I didn't touch it. "I don't want to watch anymore," I said, my voice hoarse. He chuckled softly. "You think you've stopped being part of it. That story's still rolling. You're not the viewer. You're not even the writer anymore. Then what am I?" "You're the final scene," he said, placing a small, battered movie ticket on the counter. It read, "Admit 1, final showing, seat 0. The ticket began to smolder. Backed away. The lights in the gas station dimmed, one by one, until only the TV flickered in the corner. Now the movie was showing me again. Only it wasn't live. It was what would happen next. I watched myself walk out of the gas station. I turned left. Kept walking. I arrived at a building. An old, crumbling theater with no name. Entered. I sat down. And then, the screen turned white. And I disappeared. I looked up at the old version of me behind the counter. "What if I don't go?" he asked. He tilted his head. "Then someone else will play your part. The role always finds an actor." The film reel began to unwind on its own. The door behind me creaked open, even though no one had touched it. Outside, the road had changed. It didn't lead to more houses or woods. It led to the theater I had just seen on the TV. It loomed in the distance like a broken cathedral. Black brick. Red curtains hanging like skin from the marquee. No name, just a number carved into the stone. 0. I stepped outside. The reel kept spinning, the tape slapping against the floor inside the gas station. Walk. There were no crossroads. No alternate path. Just one destination. As I reached the theater, I noticed the posters outside. All faded, all torn. Except one. 'Twas new. My face. But aged, hollowed out. And underneath it, the title. I work at a drive-in theater that plays movies no one has seen. Final showing. Inside, the air was dense. The lobby smelled of smoke and dust. Every light bulb flickered. No one manned the ticket booth. I stepped forward. The theater doors opened by themselves. Rows and rows of seats stretched ahead into an abyss. But there was only one spotlight. 0. Front row. I sat down. As soon as I did, the doors slammed shut. Projection light clicked on behind me. The screen was blank. Then it whispered. Not a voice, not a sound, but a feeling. It reached into me and pulled. I saw my memories, my regrets, my choices, all splayed out in silent monochrome across the massive screen. It wasn't just a film. It was a mirror. Then the audience began to fill in. One by one. No footsteps, no breathing. Just shadows in every seat. Watching. Waiting. Not for the story. For me. The projector whirred louder. The screen showed a final countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then it cut to black. Nothing. No images. Just silence. And then, the applause. The shadows clapped. Slowly. In unison. As if my performance had finally ended. The ceiling above me began to crack. Light bled through, but it wasn't daylight. It was that same sickly blue from the drive-in screen. Then came the voice again. You made it to the end. I stood. Then let me go. The screen shimmered. Go where? Reality. Away from this nightmare. There is no away. You were always here. Watching. Writing. Performing. I ran for the door. It opened. But on the other side was the projection booth. Same old booth. Same old reels. Only now, instead of one screen outside, there were dozens. All showing different versions of me. In one I ran. In one I stayed. In one I burned the booth down. One became the usher. And behind me on the wall a mirror. I approached it. My reflection didn't follow my movements. Just stared. Then it smiled. The usher's smile. And it lifted a hand. Holding a film reel labeled. Coming soon. Before I could move, the reel played. And the screen behind me lit up. Not with film. With light. Blinding. Painful. The reel screamed as it spun faster, faster, until it snapped. The light swallowed me whole. And everything went silent. And dark. 0. I woke up in the projection booth. Not metaphorically, not like it was a dream. I woke up there. The hum of the reels was gone. The light from the projector had died. All around me, dust settled like ash from a long-extinguished fire. It was cold, impossibly cold, yet I was sweating. I stood up, my limbs aching like I'd aged decades overnight. The booth hadn't changed, but something beneath it had. The air vibrated. Not sound but pressure, like the moment before an earthquake hits. The windows to the theater lot were gone. In their place, blank concrete walls, as if the outside world had never existed. The screens, the stars, the concession stand. Erased. Only the projection booth remained. Turned slowly. A chair sat in the center of the booth, facing away from me. It creaked softly, rocking on its own. And in its seat sat me. Not a double. Not an illusion. It was me, but not in my body. This version was burned, hollowed out, skin like celluloid curled by fire. Its mouth was frozen mid-scream, teeth blackened. I stumbled backward, bumping into the metal desk where the reels used to sit. Only one remained now, spinning slowly in place with no mechanism driving it. It was blank, no label, no title. But etched faintly on its edge were the words, "Final cut. Seat 0. The walls began to change. They flickered like a glitching screen, rippling in and out of static. Scenes played on them. Not movies. Memories. I watched my first day at the drive-in. I watched the first night I saw the strange films. The strange patrons. The girl in white who never blinked. The manager who never spoke. The man who screamed for hours during a silent film. Each flickered and vanished like they were being edited from existence. Then came the final image. Me, standing in the booth, reaching for the reel. Just as I was doing now. I looked down at the reel. My fingers hovered above it. I didn't want to touch it. Every part of my body screamed no. But something in me moved anyway. As soon as I lifted it, the reel began to spin. The air grew heavier, and the booth's floor opened up beneath me like a trapdoor, revealing a spiraling staircase made of theater seats, each one filled with shadows. The reel tugged me down. I couldn't fight it. I walked, step by step, past scenes from every strange film I had ever seen at the drive-in. Except now I knew they weren't just movies. They were lives. Each shadowed figure I'd seen in the audience. They were the actors in their own horror stories, trapped forever in the footage, cursed to repeat their roles night after night. This wasn't a drive-in. It was a prison made of stories. A place where forgotten people were remembered only through fear. Where the worst parts of them became the only parts left. At the bottom of the staircase I reached the final door. Seat 0 was carved into the center in dripping tar-black letters. Opened it. And stepped into a theater. This time it wasn't a dusty old drive-in screen. It was a grand cinema, enormous, infinite rows of seats all empty, except one. The screen pulsed with light. Like a heartbeat. And in the center row one seat glowed. It's 0. I walked toward it. Each step echoed forever like walking through a dream. When I reached the seat I sat. I didn't mean to. My legs just folded. The reel in my hands inserted itself into a projector I hadn't seen appear, clicking into place with a metallic snap. The lights dimmed. The shadows returned. One by one, silent watchers filled the rows again. Some wore my face. Some didn't have faces at all. Some flickered, skipping frames like broken VHS tapes. The screen blinked, and then began to play. Not a story. Not even images. Just black. With a single line of white text. Seat 0 confirmed. Screaming. Not from the shadows. From me. The seat gripped me like a vice. Metal arms clamped down over mine. A strap closed over my throat. Gasp. I thrashed. No one moved. The projector behind me hissed, releasing smoke. The screen filled with static. Then with an image. My memories one last time. But this time the images twisted. I wasn't just a viewer now. I was being erased. The people I remembered gone. Renamed. Even the memory of why I had taken the job at the theater in the first place, gone. Only the fear remained. The static became louder, deafening. The screen pulsed faster, until I could feel my heartbeat syncing with it. Then came a voice. Cold. Unmistakably me. Welcome to your final showing. Everything went white. I woke up in the parking lot. The sun was out. A bird chirped. The concession stand stood in the distance. Cars pulled in slowly, headlights off. A manager walked by me and nodded. "You're late," he said. And blinked. "What?" He frowned. "Don't you remember? First night on the job." I looked around. Was the same. As if none of it had happened. As if I had just arrived. "Go grab your flashlight," the manager said. "First showing's in 10. I turned toward the booth. And saw someone watching me. In the top window. Figure. With my face. Burned. Hello. Smiling. I reached into my pocket. There was a ticket stub. Admit 1. Seat 0 used. A whisper echoed in my ears. The reel always turns. The story always plays. The seat always waits. And as I walked back toward the projection booth, the wind picked up. Car radios buzzed. The sky dimmed. And on the screen ahead, the title card flickered to life. Now showing. I work at a drive-in theater that plays movies no one has seen. The cycle had restarted. And this time, I was part of the film.